So I have three ways that I know if we're in the offer zone. So people can take note of this. It might be the same for them, but if we're getting showings and I have people asking me for the inspection report, that might be a little more area specific thing, but we have a seller inspection report and people are asking me for that. That's a good indication. And if my phone is ringing with agents asking questions to size things up, then I know we're in the zone of getting an offer. If we don't have one of those things, then we're kind of close. And if we're not getting any of it, then something needs to happen.
On the daily financial news today, we talked about the top 1% agents being responsible for 15% of the transactions. That is pretty amazing and actually pretty cool because we talk to one of those agents every Tuesday, Beth Traverso. How you doing, Beth?
I'm doing great, Mike. So nice to see you. Thank you.
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, it's just wild to think about. A top 1% agent is responsible for 15% of the transactions. That's just wild. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yes, and it is true. I do see the top agents taking more and more market share, especially when the market's a little less robust, let's say.
Mhm.
People want to work with the best. They want to work with people that have a track record that can prove they can do it. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's always been true that the majority of the agents at least in our MLS here in the Seattle area, do less than one transaction a year. So that's not
That's
really
a
who you
lot.
want to have
No.
guiding you through this market and this process with what for most people is their most valuable asset. They don't want to necessarily entrust it to someone who doesn't have the experience. So it makes sense to me that they want
Yeah.
somebody who knows the market and they want somebody who has a track record where they can show, here's what I've done, look at my work, and you can
Yeah.
see the results.
Yeah.
So I see that,
Yeah.
I see it probably just moving more and more toward that, and it's going to be not just the top agents, but the bigger teams, etc. It's definitely moving into that. It's been heading that direction for years, and I see that continuing. So
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
plan for
Well, let's
that.
talk about what's going on in the market. We really haven't
Yeah.
touched base in a couple of weeks that I've been out. We are in June, almost at the end of June here. I think the last time we spoke, inventory was building ever so slightly. You were basically seeing a drop in those, offer review dates. I think we're
Yeah.
starting to disappear. I'm curious, where are we in this Seattle, King County market?
Right. So it's very interesting. I'm seeing kind of a split market where, for example, I had one listing that was in a town just north called Shoreline, just directly north of the city of Seattle. And we had 13 offers on that, and it went over 20% over list price for a starter home on a busy road with no garage. I mean, it was nice for what it was.
And it
That
was,
one,
I want to be
yeah.
clear. So 20% over,
Mm-hmm.
13 offers, busy street, no parking, no garage, probably small, I'm guessing. It's a starter
Yeah.
home.
It was a 2 bedroom, 1 bath
Oh
home.
my gosh. Wow.
it
So
was it was nice quality for what it was, I will say. So
clean, yeah.
yeah, so there's that. And then you have these other houses that are in other areas that are well priced, well presented, nothing wrong with them, but they're just sitting there on the market. And so we are starting to see some price drops on those because when the marketing is right and the pricing has, is reasonable, but you're not getting the. So I have three ways that I know if we're in the offer zone. So people can take note of this. It might be the same for them, but if we're getting showings and I have people asking me for the inspection report, that might be a little more area specific thing, but we have a seller inspection report and people are asking me for that. That's a good indication. And if my phone is ringing with agents asking questions to size things up, then I know we're in the zone of getting an offer. If we don't have one of those things, then we're kind of close. And if we're not getting any of it, then something needs to happen. So the market doesn't lie. It does change and we have to be adaptable to it. So for some, the only lever left to pull is the price. And so you just need to just do a substantial enough price reduction to bring people off the fence. And that's what we're seeing on certain properties, especially the more unique properties or properties that are maybe in a little more outlying areas or don't quite fit the mold of your typical house. Those ones, and I work with a lot of that. That's kind of my specialty, is the unique one of a kind property. That's what I do. but you just need to be very, very strategic about the pricing. And I am starting to see the inventory of those types of properties start to build a little bit. The core areas, I still am seeing some offer review dates, but not necessarily as many. When I'm tracking the sales, I'm seeing that they're going a little over list price, but not that 20% was an outlier, not any indication of the norm.
Right.
But if you're a buyer in this market, you need to be sure where you fit in those things, and what's happening with that sub market of what you're looking at, what the activity is on those houses. So I
Yeah.
am still seeing that, in the last handful of weeks, we're still seeing about equal new listings to pending listings. Because I watch for the 7 days on the hot sheet. I watch it every
Right.
day, but then every week I see how many new listings did we get, how many went off the market, and it's pretty even. We're still at about 1.3 month
Wow.
inventory in the King County, which is, greater Seattle area. So I'm not seeing a huge wave of new listings like it sounds like maybe some other markets are experiencing. We're not really seeing that here. And looking back at our inventory over the last 5 years, let's say, it always seems to peak around July every year.
Okay.
So there's a normal seasonality of things where in the first quarter of the year, which is our busy time, you see all this activity and prices bumping up and everything's coming off the market, but then it plateaus at a certain point because there's only so high it can go. There's only so much frothiness that can be absorbed into the market. And then once you get to that point where it's okay, we're done, buyers aren't going to go 10% over the already 10% higher price. Like it has a ceiling, and we hit that around this time of year. Plus the weather here gets nice and kids are out of school and people are on vacation. That is a factor too. But I am seeing though that because the inventory was so low this year, same as last year, that good houses are still selling pretty quickly, even in the summertime, because a lot of people wanted to buy a house in the spring and didn't because they were waiting for a good house to come on the market. They didn't get one. They're still out there.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah. I want to
interesting.
talk about those oddball houses because I really think there's something going to be interesting happening maybe in the next 60 or 90 days. Not necessarily King County. This is more of a national thought, but I want to play with it a little bit. I think we're going to start to find out who wants to sell versus who needs to sell. And what do I mean by that? Let's say you have one of these oddball houses. It's not selling, not getting showings. It's not asking for the inspection report. So you're 0 for 3 in your list.
Mhm.
If you're the seller, you really have two options, right? You can take that substantial price cut, which what is like 5 to 8%, or what's substantial roughly?
Yeah, so I mean, in our market, it's typically 50 to 100,000, depending on the
Okay,
price point,
got it.
and I guess I'd have to think about what that is price wise, about 5% or so.
Okay, so 50K. Okay, 50K.
Mhm.
That's meaningful, right? You're
Yeah,
going to see that on the closing statement, right? You're going to
yeah,
be
it's
50K
going to make
light.
a
That's
difference in your net that you're going to notice. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So okay, we'll play with that. Um, and where I think this is going to go is some of those folks are going to do that, but I'm going to guess half will simply decide to sell later because I don't think we've been in a market slow like this in a while. And I think some people are just going to delay and wait for next spring or wait another year or do whatever. So do you think cancellations or withdrawals or might start to go up?
So I'm not seeing it here. It could. I think the reason why I'm not seeing it so much here is that there's been a very strong trend of the people that I'm working with, at least, where they're in the need to sell category. Almost
Yeah.
everybody selling needs to sell. They don't really have the
Okay.
option of waiting. If they did, then sure, they may take it off the market. It would make sense if it's just not happening for them right now.
Mhm.
But for most, the vast majority, it's divorce, it's a death in the family in the state situation, or they're moving out of state or out of the area in some way.
Yeah.
And they
So
need
these are
the
all need to sell.
equity. Yeah, they need
Yeah.
the equity from this home to purchase their new home in the new area. And it's not an option for them, or they already bought their new house and they've got some sort of a bridge deal
Yeah.
going on and they need to sell. So
Makes
almost
sense.
everybody I'm working with fits in one of those categories, almost every single one. So
That's interesting
they're
because
not going to necessarily have the option to just wait it out.
so that's another reason why transactions are going to stay so low for so long
Mm-hmm.
is we're not getting what's called the move up buyer, the want to
Mm-hmm.
sell, like, hey, I want to sell this and I want to buy that. the aspirational buyer
Yeah.
who's upgrading the home, not going to a new state, right? Um, that's interesting that it's all need to sell,
Yeah.
death,
I
divorce,
haven't seen, it's very interesting. It's really, really unusual because we haven't had that. I haven't seen the move up seller buyer in a long time. And when they come back, that is going to, we'll be talking a lot about that on this channel because that's going to be
uh,
very newsworthy. When they come
yeah,
pouring off the fence, it's going to
yep,
be nuts. So
yeah,
and then everyone's going to be scrambling to meet that demand and everyone's going to be busy. Those still in the business are going to be busy at that point. So
yeah.
who knows when that's going to happen? I'm not sitting
Yeah,
around waiting for that.
no,
But
yeah, it. You know, if you look at my 50-year spreadsheet, it could be a while. It
yeah,
could
I
be a
know.
while.
I hope it's not going to be like what it was at 25 years or something.
Yeah, like it was 15 or 16 years last time,
Yeah,
1978 to 1990.
yeah.
Think about that, 78 to 94. It's before transactions went back to the peak of 78. That is
I know that's just mind blowing.
wild.
That's why it's cool to have that spreadsheet because you can see things like that that I never would have guessed.
Never,
Never.
I'm in this
I
game
know.
every day. I never would have guessed. 78?
Yeah.
We had a heck of a lot more people in 94 than 78.
I just can't even imagine. I mean, I wasn't, I was too young to be paying attention to that stuff back then, but
Yeah,
wow, I can only
crazy,
imagine what that must have been like.
crazy.
So, it's going to be interesting to see. I haven't had too many of the move up. Gosh, I mean, since rates spiked, I haven't had much of any of that. I've had a few people come to me and explore the option and then decide to wait,
Yeah, like nope, I'm
you
good.
know?
I'll stay put.
Yeah. And then
Yeah,
the
pretty crazy.
buyers, we do have, as far as who's buying right now, it's, some of these are people who already sold their house somewhere else and now they're on the buy side because there are those, the people coming from another area, they sold,
Mhm.
they're buying. And then the first time buyers there's a lot of first time buyers out there still. That's a
Yeah,
lot who was competing for that little house.
sure.
And they were
Yeah.
just, well, some of them were just, you could just tell there was just desperation setting in because they've been trying and trying and trying to get
Mm,
their first home. And it was a first time home buyer that bought it. And they couldn't have been more thrilled and ecstatic that their offer was accepted. So, because
yeah.
they weren't, they were losing to cash and people with a huge amount down, and not everybody has that. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
Pretty wild. Well, I want to transition a little bit. We haven't really talked about the NAR settlement in a while. There's been a lot of chatter about buyers agents. It'll be very interesting to see what Zillow and Redfin do on the buyer side. I think they got something up their sleeves for sure.
Mhm.
But I think there's a rumor out there that buyers agents are going to disappear. So
Yeah.
I thought I would ask you as a top 1% agent, is it true? Is this all sell side now? Buyers
Mm.
agents are going away?
Buyer's agent. I've got news for people. Buyer's agents are not going anywhere. Some may go out of business, that's true, but the role of the buyer's agent is going to continue. So I have not seen any significant change in that. So since all of this NAR settlement came out, and I have to say our MLS, the Northwest MLS, is not owned by NAR. We're one of the few that is not. So, and ours decided not to opt in to that settlement. However, that's because we already implemented all virtually all of the terms of that, except for the fact that now there's going to be this thing where people can't say how much they're offering the buyer agent, which makes it's going to make a weird secret marketplace, which is part of the reason why the MLS opted out of that, because they believe, as I do, that transparency and open negotiation is the way to go, and making things less transparent does not help the consumer in any way and leads to shady dealings. So that said, there was a lot of news about this for a while, and for the public, where for a while there, I bring it up when I'm talking to sellers, and for a while there, a lot of them were asking me about it, or I try to ask them before they ask me and see what they know about it.
Mhm.
And it varied what they knew or thought they knew. But then I haven't really, when I ask about it lately, they're just kind of like, huh, I don't really know what you mean. And so, however, it's always been negotiable how much an agent is paid, a buyer agent and a listing agent, and that has not changed. I think that's the biggest misconception is people like, oh, the 3% commission or 6% commission is gone. And it's like, well, it never was
Yeah.
specified that anyone had to offer that. And to be honest, a lot don't
Hmm.
already. And I did look in our area in our MLS to see how many sellers are offering zero buyer agent commission. And there was only maybe, I don't know, 5 or so, maybe 10 in our whole King County area, which is millions of people in the King County area
Sure.
and thousands of listings. Um, and there was only maybe 10 or less. And when I clicked on that, it said in there, seller wants to negotiate the commission. It didn't say they're
Mm,
not offering it. It just says, let's have a negotiation about it. To
right.
which I say, bring it on. Let's do it. It's a lot of I'm hearing some agents in the chatter I hear out there that they see the zero and they're like, forget it. I'm not working for
Mm,
free. Screw you.
mm.
And what I would say is we put ourselves out there as negotiators. Go in there and negotiate. They're telling you they're willing to pay you. Go in there and ask. And if
Yep.
I was a buyer, I would be like, yes, this is great. If that's going to deter some people or some buyers who are like, well, it says zero, I don't want to have to pay out of pocket. Because that's the thing when a seller is offering less than whatever they have, because buyers have to have a buyer agency agreement in place now before they can even look at a property that's going to say my agent is getting paid X amount. And if somebody's
Yep.
saying I'm paying zero, then that's going to be potentially the buyer would have to pay it. But what I would say is go in there and negotiate it, put it in your offer.
Right.
90% of the time you will get it. And you probably will forego a lot of the competition too. So
Yeah.
um,
I think that's so well said. Real estate is nothing but a negotiation, meeting in the middle, finding out what's important to you, what's important to me. And the buyer's agent, you have to have one, right? You have to have a buyer's agent agreement signed. So they're not going to work for free. So somebody's paying them.
yeah.
It might as well be a negotiation. Let's flip the script and kind of talk about Zillow. I think Zillow, Redfin, I think they're lurking out there. I see them coming up with some kind of fixed fee, something or other. Has something happened there? Is something coming, you think? What about all those?
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting because I think they have an issue that they're working out because a lot of the consumers, and I worked with Zillow, I built my business on Zillow. So I was a huge spender on Zillow for many years. Not anymore so much at all. But what the buyer, when they're surfing online, they're just clicking a button, they're just click button, see house. They don't even know who's going to meet them there. And so now there's this problem where, and this goes for Redfin too, but they like, well, what, you want me to sign a buyer agency agreement just to look at this house? No, I don't even know who you are. A lot of time it might be some new agent. Maybe they don't like them. Maybe this agent's not good. Who knows? They
Mm-hmm.
don't want to get married to this person before their first blind date, so to speak. Like
Yeah.
they don't want to do that. And that's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
And there's been some debate about whether, I don't know, I think it's pretty darn clear, especially in that NAR settlement, that you must have that sign before you go through the door. And
Yep.
you can do it. This is what they're going to do. They're going to have agreements that are going to be like, this is just for this one house, or this is just for today, just to get you in the door, those kind of things. But I think a lot of people don't necessarily even want to do that. People would sometimes waste. I mean, there's a lot of time wasting happens with Zillow where somebody might even be like, I already have an agent, but they're just out of town this weekend. And I just
Mm,
clicked this button because they said I could see it at 11:30. So I just want to go out there and see it.
right.
They're even starting something now where buyers can I'll get into all this. There's other ways that they're getting into, just they're trying to ease a transition for people to just click the button and just have access into the house and then
Mm,
hopefully buy it or buy another house. But the buyer agency agreement is complicating that, and they did have something they came up with, some 1 week deal or whatever, but where you can buy a house with no obligation or something. But I mean, it didn't meet the criteria of what our MLS requires. Like there has to be a specific compensation in there.
right.
It has to be like legally spelling everything out in a way that meets our legal requirements. And what they had didn't seem like it met that at all. So I think it's a start. They're gonna have to find ways to make it easy for people to sign it, because otherwise people aren't going to sign it. I'm seeing more people, more buyers than ever going through open houses than we ever had before. So if you're selling a house, you better be having open houses. I say, I mean, every weekend if you can, because people that don't want to sign that illegal agreement to get into a house, those Zillow and Redfin buyers and people like them, they just want to see the house and see if they like it. They don't want to have to sign some legal
Yep.
agreement. So they will come through an open house because it's exempt from that. That's really the only thing left where people can just walk through a house and see it without having to
Yeah.
sign any legal agreement. So be
It's
aware
really
of that.
wild. Yeah, it's really wild you brought that up. I did not put that together. They're throwing sand in the gears. They're making the transaction harder, right? Part of
Mhm.
selling a home is getting a lot of eyeballs on it. And
Ah.
they've really made that sticky and harder
Hmm.
with the settlement. So that's going to be interesting. I
There's
did
some
see
ways it
that.
really doesn't help the consumer. They put it out there and they won, and the lawyers are making, I don't
A
know how many
billion
hundreds of
dollars or
millions of
something.
dollars, and everybody else is going to have to figure out how they're going to work around all this. So
Yeah. Yeah, I did see really good news. I think it was a couple weeks ago where the VA has already changed their model. Uh,
yeah,
so now it, because the NAR settlement didn't work for VA buyers.
yeah.
Thankfully the VA changed it, and now
I was
they're okay.
so surprised how quickly they changed
Yeah,
that.
me too. I'm like, that's this.
I thought that would
I'm
take a year. So
me too.
really happy that was fast.
Shout out to the VA for
Yeah,
doing right by our veterans. That was really
that was
cool. That was,
impressive.
yep, yep.
Yeah. But
So
again, I don't think vets or anyone are really going to have to pay their agents that much. Negotiate it into the deal if it's not being offered.
yep,
The vast
exactly.
majority of the time, the sellers will pay it, especially if the market's slowing down. Sellers don't want to disincentivize buyers coming to their home. In
Yeah.
fact, I had a seller that I talked to recently that said, I want to know that I can still offer to pay a buyer's agent because I want to have all the buyer's agents want to help us sell our house. And I'm
Yep.
like, yes, absolutely, you can. That hasn't changed. So some people out there thinking they can't help buyers
Oh
buy their
wow.
house now. And they want them to, that they play a vital role. Some might have not had a good experience and think they don't do anything, but there's a lot buyers agents do a lot more than people think, and a lot of it's unpaid already. And a
Yeah, no,
lot
I
of,
mean,
opening
think
the
about all.
door, yeah, it's
Yeah.
right in the contract. That's the smallest part of it.
Yeah. No, absolutely agree. I think real estate is going to be really interesting as we get to the end of the year. I think the NAR settlement goes into effect July 1st, I think, might be July 31st, really soon. So it'll be fun to watch this. Beth, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, buy or sell in King County, or better yet, get a referral to another other amazing agent, how would they reach out?
Yeah, the easiest way is through my website, bethtraversogroup.com. And I love connecting with the one rental at a time community out there. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.